Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany Petty and Dr. Rena Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started. Welcome to Managing Dental Drama today. Happy Monday. I am excited to have you guys here with me today. We are going to be digging back into branding. I had several questions after the last branding episode, which was a couple weeks ago, and so I wanted to follow back up with some examples that may be able to help you guys with some of your branding questions. But before we dive into today's topic, I did want to encourage you guys, in the notes of this episode, you'll see a link to be able to subscribe to a email that we send out on a weekly basis. Most of the time, it's just an email that has the upcoming episode. It's got a few additional episodes if you want to click and listen to some related topics. But this particular week, we're going to try to include a document for you that will help you work through your branding. It just gives some good broad questions and get you started down the path of thinking through your brand in a little bit more detail. So if you are wanting to kind of get some of those weekly updates and the support when we're able to send support, just sign up. Again, the link is in today's episode's notes, so you can just go there, click that link, and fill in your information. And of course, as always, we love to hear from you guys. So I love getting questions after episodes or thoughts and ideas. And so please send those whenever you have them. We love to incorporate those as much as possible. So you're welcome to send an email. You can, in our notes, there's normally a phone number where you can call and leave a voice memo or a voice message, or text a voice memo with some of your thoughts or feedback. And we really do try to incorporate those as much as we can when we can. All right, so diving into today's episode, I reached out to two of my clients that have really, one has had a good, strong brand in place for years now. And so I wanted to hear from him and how just what his brand is. And I was going to fill in some of the gaps in how we came up with that. And then another one of my clients that recently created her brand, she's starting a new practice. And this is one of the things that I do. This is an exercise that I walk through with all of my new clients, where we really try to get into the core of who we are and who we want to be before all of these decisions are made, even before people are hired. We want to know who we are at our core and who we're committed to being. So I'm going to start by playing her voice memo, because I want you to kind of hear the inception of a brand that's being built. It's in its early stages. And after she shares her thoughts, I'll come back around and give you guys some additional thoughts. But here is her brand. This is Dr. Luse, and she created this brand a few months ago.
Hey guys, our brand is defined by our core values, and they are condensed into the word reach to be simple and memorable. So for patients, we are creating healthy smiles within your reach. And for us, reach signifies that we are resourceful, engaged, accountable, compassionate, and humble. And then each of these qualities are defined by clear action statements. So resourceful, we find solutions, not problems. Engaged, we are fully present, focused, and passionate. Accountable, we do what we say we are going to do. Compassionate, we are servant-hearted and love others. Humble, we are always willing to listen and improve. So when I set out to develop our brand, I started with a brainstorming session. I sat down with a notebook and just started writing. I described the type of office I wanted to have, how I wanted to be known, and who I wanted to be. And initially, I had a hard time articulating what I wanted, and so I found it easiest to work backward. Since I spent so many years as an associate, I had a clear vision of what I didn't want. And by identifying those things, I was able to flip them and then clarify the culture that I wanted to create. I also want to give a shout out to the Craig Groeschel Leadership Podcast. I got a lot of inspiration from there. He does a great job in some of his early episodes of describing exactly how to create a value-driven culture. So if you're working on developing your own brand, I would highly recommend listening.
Awesome. So that was Dr. Luse, and one of the things that I love about the brand that she's created is not only is it short and memorable, so it can be broken down into a word, right? Reach. It's one word that really can encapsulate everything that's valuable or important to Dr. Luse and ultimately will be important to her patients and her team. But I like it because it's short and memorable. And one of the things that I think is most important about branding is that these are words that we can really rally around and remember on a daily basis. And when you're able to put it into a word like reach that symbolizes several different words, it is memorable. It's almost like, oh shoot, what is the E again? And we are able to think back to this word that really captures what we're going for. And so that isn't always possible. Sometimes the words or the values that we want don't fit into a bigger word, but sometimes it can be 4 letters, the 4 C's, and we're caring and compassionate and clear with our language. We're good communicators. So sometimes we can rally around a letter that means something to us. Sometimes it can't even be condensed into that. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. It doesn't kind of connect to this bigger picture or this word or this alliteration. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be that, but it's got to be short, sweet, and to the point. And you heard in Dr. Luce's brand example that it was short, sweet, and to the point, but also, the other thing that I love about her brand is it's action-packed. So there are words, there's clear words that she's got in there, resourceful. But then there's also action steps that she is committing to take, because even a word like resourceful it means something, right? It has a definition, but she takes it a step further and puts an action behind it. And when we do that, it takes our brand, our value, our culture to a whole new level. It means not only are we resourceful, but we're always going to be taking action steps towards being resourceful. And that's what I love about her particular brand is it's short, sweet, and to the point. She can break it down into just the word reach, smiles within your reach. For patients, that can be a quick tagline that they can take away, smiles within your reach. But for the team, it means so much more. And for the patients that really are looking for a practice with a strong culture, they want to know what that word means. What does reach mean? Because it is very clearly not just one word, but it's got R period, E period, A period. And so we know that it means something more. And there's patients out there that want to know what a practice is all about. And so they can dig further. The other thing as far as application of this brand or this value-driven culture that Dr. Luse is going for is it's front and center. So when you go to her website, it is very much on that opening home page. She very clearly shows who she is by putting that brand very clearly in front. I love for this brand to be everywhere. So website, of course, it needs to be kind of front and center on your website. Any kind of marketing that you do, whether that's print media, radio, if you're sending out mailers, or if you're advertising in a magazine, if you're doing things on Facebook, really diving into the culture or the brand that you have. So maybe through social media, you decide to, for the next, let's say you've got 5 value statements or 5 core values. you focus on that. Maybe for the next 2 weeks, you're focusing on your first value. And maybe that's resourceful, like Dr. Luse said. Okay, resourceful. And then throughout the next couple of weeks, you really focus on, first of all, what does resourceful mean to us? And you're kind of unpacking that on social media. Maybe there are pictures of you and your team being resourceful. So maybe that's y'all attending a seminar, an online seminar, and you're learning something new. Maybe that's you with a broken piece of equipment and it shows a picture of you guys being resourceful and trying to problem solve that broken piece of equipment. Maybe that is being resourceful in the ways in which you give to the community and you're showcasing that. And so you just unpack for those couple of weeks over social media. This is us. We are resourceful and always trying to be resourceful. And these are the ways in which we do it. And then even posing a challenge. What are the ways that you, our patients, are resourceful and getting some engagement in that? So that is something that I want to encourage you. Once you create this brand, these core values, these things that are unbreakable for you and your team, first of all, you need to focus on them consistently yourselves. And then second of all, you really need to put your brand or your core values front and center for your patients, for the public to see. Because number one, that provides accountability. Accountability is one of Dr. Luce's words. It provides accountability. If we are saying this is who we are and this is who we promise to be to you, then we are making that so front and center that when or if we break that or we are not upholding our living culture and core values, then we're going to get called out on that. And that's important for us to grow in that. So I think putting that front and center, making sure that your patients know who you are, who you're striving to be, it keeps you accountable, but it also hopefully attracts the right patients to your practice. Patients that are looking for the core values that you're really upholding in your practice. So when we put that consistently out there and we unpack that in a very detailed way, then we're able to attract people that are looking for what we promise to deliver. And I think that's really important about the brand. So Dr. Luse, thank you for sharing your brand. I absolutely love it. And there's so many wonderful things. Hopefully just listening to her example, you guys can kind of get some ideas of what it means to create a really simple, memorable core value, DNA, brand, whatever you want to call it. But it becomes what you're committing and adopting as a mindset and as an everyday practice. This becomes who you are. You live and breathe this brand. And in so doing, you attract patients to your practice that want that brand. So I would definitely encourage you guys to go to the resource that Dr. Luse recommended. There's tons of great books on branding. And then, of course, get into our subscription, and I'll send you a little bit of a worksheet to work through. One of the things that I love that Dr. Luse said is that she worked backwards. Sometimes it's easier to start with who you don't want to be and then work your way back into who you want to be and what you want to be known for. And that worksheet will help you kind of work through some of those questions. Okay, I want to shift gears now, and we are going to hear from another client of mine. In my branding episode a couple weeks ago, I mentioned that one of my clients had this beautiful piece of art that was created with his brand. He put it front and center in his lobby. It's beautiful. And I reached out to this client after I started getting questions for examples, and thankfully he was willing to share his brand with us. So listen in to Dr. Valadez share his brand.
I'd like to share a few ideas pertaining to the branding and dentistry episode of the podcast. One of the best things we have done in our practice was to spend a few days just working on developing our brand. Ultimately, we titled it our mission statement, but like Chick-fil-A's use of the phrase, "my pleasure," we actively and consistently use elements of it in branding our office. They say people who surround themselves with top talent have a funny way of becoming top talent themselves. One of the things I love about our brand is that I had very little to actively do with it. My experience is that involving my team made our brand stronger than I could have accomplished alone. I've been blessed with awesome team members and low turnover during my years of practice. This makes us more like family, and like family members, they sometimes know us better than we know ourselves. They know me and my practice philosophy very well, and they are much more creative than I. So through collective brainstorming and guidance from Bethany, we were able to come up with some statements that embody the essence of our practice, our brand. The amazing thing is that the mission statement / brand has persisted and remained relevant to my team despite the passing of several years and most of the initial authors having moved on to other pursuits. Once we put our brand into words, we wanted to display that for our patients. Many offices develop their mission or vision statement and display it in a small frame in some obscure place like the notice of how to file a complaint to the state board. If you want these words to reflect your brand, go big and bold. Our colored canvas is 30 inches by 30 inches. We used a nice color and different fonts to draw the eye and create motion. Of course, I don't have an eye for this, but a creative team member did a great job designing it. Displaying it is not enough. Our patients and potential patients need to hear it as well. We use it in our marketing and also use it in our conversations with patients. The whole team was tasked with memorizing our mission statement so the elements of it could flow in conversation just like the famous "My Pleasure" of Chick-fil-A. They posted it inside their cabinets in case they needed a quick reference, and they were tested on it. For instance, one of our statements in our mission statement is, "We provide premium quality dentistry at a fair price." When discussing treatment, I often have patients ask if I can cut them a deal, give them a discount, or just outright ask why their treatment is so expensive. I pull from our mission statement and say, "Mr. Smith, I understand this is a big investment. Unfortunately, the price is the price. I'm not the cheapest nor the most expensive in town, but I can tell you I charge a fair price for premium quality dentistry." Another excerpt is, "We invest in training and technology to better serve you." When a patient comments on how cool our intraoral scanner is, the person using it may say something like, "Dr. Valadez works to stay on top of advances in dentistry and invests in our training and the technology to provide premium quality dentistry to our patients." By memorizing the mission statement, the words just kind of roll off your tongue, and as in the last example, can be combined. Through continued use, the patients may even use some of your words when someone asks about your practice. Recently, I was introduced to the book Cowboy Ethics, in which Jim Owen makes a case for business ethics to mirror those of the Cowboy Code. One of the principles of Cowboy Ethics is ride for the brand. In short, your actions or inactions directly reflect on the brand, so always work to positively impact the brand. Another principle is when you make a promise, keep it. Given these two examples, one quick way to tank your brand is to not deliver on what you claim. For example, one phrase in our mission reads, "We always value your time." If my office was running late, we just look like we say one thing and do another. We strive daily to make sure we're living up to our promises and are riding for the brand. I hope this has been helpful if you're working to establish or improve your brand. Thank you to Bethany and Dr. Kuba for allowing me time to share. I wish you all the best in managing your dental drama.
So one of the things that I love about Dr. Valadez and his commentary here is he has lived and breathed his brand for years now. So I was lucky enough to get to sit with him and help his team really just guide the process. They came up with every single word, every single phrase, and like Dr. Valadez shared in his note here, he really was impressed with their level of creativity. And so I was so lucky to get to be a part of that process and really to watch a cool brand unfold. But I've been even more blessed over these last few years to really see that brand being implemented on a daily basis. And when I'm there in his office, I can hear the words of it being spoken by his team. I can see them striving for it. One of the things we do on an annual basis, normally in our January meeting each year, is we pull the brand back out and we rate ourselves on the brand. So as a team, we go through each segment of his mission statement, his core values, and we rate ourselves 1 to 10. We say, how are we doing on this? And then if we are below 8 in a few areas, then we start talking about what could we be doing better. It is truly it's become a guiding force for his practice and a guiding force for his team, so much so that it's even embedded into their language. I think the visual nature that Dr. Valadez has given the brand or the mission statement from the beginning, from the inception of it, all the way throughout these years, has really made it front and center for his team and for the patients who experience that brand on a daily basis. Like Dr. Valadez said, one of the most important things is to slow down and really take the time. He mentioned we took a couple of days actually to really mull over every single aspect of his practice, to slow things down and to think about every word of that mission statement, so that once it came to be, once that core value was developed and all these statements came to fruition, in the words that we wanted, we felt really, really good about it. It wasn't something that we quickly threw on paper. It was something that really took a lot of time and effort to really think through. And then in those days after the creation of it, it was really a time to test it and to make sure that it was truly who we wanted to be and who we were striving to be on a daily basis. And so slow it down, really take the time to think through it. It's an investment of time, but it's well worth it. And it served Dr. Valadez and his team very well all these years. And I think with his particular brand, you heard a few statements there from those core values. He had a variety of things that were important, and we really couldn't settle on just one. There were so many things that we wanted to make sure we did deliver. And again, it was kind of our code of ethics that we wanted to provide in his particular practice. And so there's your DNA or your core brand doesn't have to be this one simple idea or this one word. It can be a series of things that are put together in a really memorable way. And again, his team has memorized this brand. He talks about it often. We talk about it when I have the pleasure of being with his team. So it is something that's at the top of our mind and definitely not on the back burner. So a few tips and a few takeaways for brand is, first of all, think about who you are. Don't think about the words first. Don't go straight to, I want to come up with this really catchy phrase. Really think on who you are and who you want to be. Like Dr. Luse said, who you're not. And then take some time to really start trying to put that into either short, memorable phrases. So what I tell all of my clients is you really don't want those branding phrases to be more than 4, 5, 6, at a maximum 7 words. Now you can have several of those, right? So most people have 3 or 4 little short statements, sometimes even 5 or 6 statements. So they can be several of them, but they need to be short, sweet, and to the point. The shorter we make it, the more important those words become. Because if we don't have a lot of ands, these, thus, we will, we shall, all of that, it really focuses us in on the core of what you're trying to say about yourself. So with hearing these two, you heard Dr. Luce's brand in its entirety. You heard segments of Dr. Valadez's brand, his core values. I hope this gives you enough content to be able to kind of pull back and go, I kind of get what a brand is now. It takes different shapes and different forms, but I think it starts with a really good thinking process and a self-evaluation process. And again, we're happy to send you our branding worksheet. Just sign in for that email or sign up for that email, and we'll get that out to you. Take the time to kind of think through that. If you have a team, or you've got a spouse or somebody that's involved in the practice, let them do this branding worksheet with you. Sometimes we think more completely and fully when we involve people who are also involved in the practice. Like with Dr. Valadez, when he built out this brand, had a full team in place. So we made the decision to include his full team in the creation of this brand. And I really like that process and encourage all practice owners, if you haven't done that with your team or you haven't revisited your brand with the team, it's really interesting to get their feedback and to get words that matter to them. In the branding worksheet, one of the things that you'll see is it starts with like a really big idea. It starts with simple things like, what do you do? Who do you do it for? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And so it kind of starts big. And then it starts to narrow down, like what sets you apart from your competitors or the competition in your area? What makes you different? Why does your difference matter? And it starts moving into these more segmented or funneled type questions. And then towards the end of the worksheet, it asks you to identify keywords. So one of the things that I really like for you to do, if you're doing this with your team, is once you get to that section, have your team members write down 5 words, 5 character traits or characteristics of your practice that are the top 5 things. And they need to put them in order. So the number one thing, if I could only pick one word, it would be this. If I could pick 2 words, then my second word would be this, so on and so forth, up to 5 words. So when all of your team member has had a chance, and they shouldn't be talking to one another during this is individual, they write their words down, they label them from 1 to 5, 1 being the most important, 5 being the least. Then you have your team share what they've written down, just one word. They can't write a sentence, they can't write a phrase, it's just one word. It's normally an adjective is what they end up writing down. And so you write these words down, you document them. So as your team's talking, you document these words. Let's say, oh, somebody said caring, and now the third person has said caring. You can just put a check mark beside caring each time you hear it, and that way you know there's been 3 people that have said the word caring or technologically advanced. Okay, that now the 4th person has said that. Whatever the case may be, what you will find out is as you listen to your team write down those words and speak those words, you'll start to realize a repetitive theme with many of the words. And sometimes thinking about a brand is so broad, so big, that this is one of the best narrowing down activities that you can do. It hones you in on keywords. It's usually 5, 6, 7 keywords or ideas, similar concepts. And as you talk through that with your team, you realize, oh gosh, 5 of you said caring. That seems like to be a very strong core for us. Why is that core? And you can talk through that concept a little bit more. Now, that may not be the word, the actual word that you end up using, but that concept becomes a part of your core DNA because your team thought it was a part of their core DNA. And so that activity alone, once you get to that, it's hard to just jump into that. So to kind of go to the end of the worksheet and go, let's just get to the main point. Let's do this activity. It's really hard. You kind of have to get your team warmed up and thinking and really kind of big picture brand and who we are before you try to narrow it down. Once you narrow it down too quickly or too fast, you don't get the breadth of descriptions from your team that you would, or some of them may become completely stumped. They have no idea because they haven't thought about it before. If you go through the whole worksheet together as a team, once you get to that point, they're primed and ready to give you 5 words that they think mean something to the team or to the practice. So get that worksheet, work through it with your team. If you don't have a team yet or you're in the stages of planning your own practice, work through it on your own. I love when a practice owner can have a brand in place solidly before they start hiring. because then you've really got something to talk about with the people that you interview, and to attract the right type of people who will be able to be ambassadors for your brand. Dr. Valadez mentioned Chick-fil-A. Each of those workers are ambassadors for the Chick-fil-A brand. They say that language, they believe in that culture and in that mission, and you want to really attract people from the get-go to your practice that have that same mindset. So if you're in the process of starting a practice or in the early stages, definitely now's the time for a brand as well. I hope these examples have been helpful, and I really do wish you luck as you begin to think on this more fully. And again, I would encourage you, if you have a brand in place, it's time to pull it out, reevaluate it, let your team rate yourself on how you're doing with all of those branding statements, and make sure you're living up to your brand. Have a great rest of the week.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.